Hi everybody, I'm Dave Connor. In this Treehouse workshop, we are going to create a full-screen horizontal page slider, no JavaScript, simply using HTML and CSS. These sliders have been a popular design pattern for many years, and there are hundreds of jQuery plugins out there to create them. Today, however, we will demonstrate that HTML and CSS are more than capable of handling the task. And once we start coding, it may surprise you how little CSS it takes to create some pretty neat effects. So let's get started. First, let's look at what we will be building. We have a full-page slider with navigation. There are transitions and fade-ins, pretty much a typical slider. In order to create our slider, we will be using radio input elements along with their check pseudo class. It is this pseudo class that will allow us to target and style each individual slide, along with any annotations or content we wish to overlay. In our index.html, we have a div with the class name of wrap, and we have a radio input group named slides. Notice that we have the first one checked. This will be our starter slide. The natural behavior of the radio button to only allow for one checked element in a group will provide the check state. If we open this up in the browser, you can see only one of these radio inputs can be checked at one time. If we click on one, the other is unselected. So this is the check state, and this is what the check pseudo class will target in our CSS. But before we get into our styles, let's first build our slides. We will be placing one slide in between each radio element. Before the first input, we will add a section. We will give it a class of slide, and since this is our first slide, we will also give it a class of slide 1. Inside our section, I'm going to add a headline tag that says headline 1. And that's it for our slide. Let's copy this and paste one section between each of our radio elements. Then I'll just change the class of the sections to slide 2, slide 3, and slide 4. And we will also be changing these headlines up as well. This will be headline 2, headline 3, and headline 4. Okay, now we have 4 slides. The next thing we want to do is create our navigation. We could use our radio inputs, but instead we will create labels for each of our radio elements. These labels will act as controls for our slider. So right above our slides, we will create a header. Inside this header will be our labels. We will use the for attribute to tie them to the respective radio inputs. So we use the ID of the first radio as the value of our first for attribute, which in this case is slide 1 trigger. Then I'll just call this slide 1. With that done, I'm just going to copy and paste 3 more times and update each of these 4 attributes along with the text. So we'll change this to slide 2, slide 3, and slide 4. So far, we have a div that's serving as our wrapper. We have a header which contains our navigational elements. And finally, we have our radio slider section combinations here. Now let's go add some styles. We have 2 style sheets linked in our index.html document. The first one is style.css. This is just some demo boilerplate code. We will be working in horizontal.css. Opening it up, We will begin by making sure our HTML and body elements are both 100% in height and width. So we'll write HTML, body, and make the height 100%, and the width also 100%. Then we will remove any padding or margin. This is to make sure that our slides will be full screen, so we want to take away any padding or margin that the browser will add to either of these elements. Now we will style our wrapper, which is this class of wrap. I'm going to give this a height and width of 100%. I'm going to give this a height and width of 100%, but this could really be any size you want the slider to be. The div with the class of wrap dictates the size of our slides and our images. Next, we want to set our div relative and set our overflow to hidden. This is so we can position our slides absolutely off screen and we won't get any horizontal scroll bars. Finally, I'm just going to set the background to a dark gray and set our text color to white. So the headline is centered. We're going to go ahead and set text align to center. So now that our wrapper is done, let's create our header navigation. We are going to give the header a background that is slightly lighter gray than our wrapper and apply a light box shadow. We will position it absolutely to the top left corner. And give it a z-index of 900 so that we are sure that's on top of the rest of the content. Finally, we will set the width to 100%. Next, let's style our labels. We'll set the color to a light gray. That you can see here. We must change the cursor so it looks like a link, so we will set that to pointer. Next, we will display inline block. This way, our labels will be side by side and centered in the middle of our header. Inline block also allows for our line height to be respected, which we will add now. Let's go ahead and add a line height of 4.25 em. This gives us a larger clickable area. So the layout of our label buttons are done. Let's go ahead and add our text styles and some padding. First, we'll add font size of 0.667 em. Then we'll add font weight of bold. And finally, the padding, which we'll just add 0.1 em. Let's also go ahead and add a slight hover effect. For this, we'll just set the background to a lighter shade of gray. And with that, our navigational buttons are done. Let's save this and look at our page. As you can see, we have our header and our header buttons. If we click on slide 2, the second radio gets selected. So our label buttons are performing as expected and looking good. Now it's just a matter of styling our slides. So going back to horizontal.css, we are going to style all the slides as a whole using our slide class. Once again, we will set width and height to 100%. Now we will set each slide's position to absolute, and we will give them a top of 0 and a left of 100%. With these styles, we are pushing all of our slides off to the side of the window. Next, we will set all non-checked slides z-index to 10, then some padding. For padding, I'm going to add 8em, 1em, 0. Okay, our base slide styling is done. Now we must set our background images for each slide. Before we do that, on the slide class, I'm going to set the background color the same as the wrapper. I'll center the background with background position, 50%, 50%. Then I'll set the background size to cover so our images fill up the entire slide. Next, I'm just going to copy and paste some images here for each slide. These styles give each slide a different background image. You can copy this code from the teacher's notes. And with that, our slides are done, but they are all currently off screen. We want to move them onto the screen only when the right radio element is checked. So all that is left to do is to target this check state. We are going to use an attribute selector to select any input that has an ID that starts with slide. Then, we will further qualify the selector by adding the pseudo-class of checked. This will target any of our radio inputs as they all begin with slide. Then, by using the adjacent sibling combinator, which is the plus sign, we can finally target our slide. When our radio element is checked, we want to position our slide back on the left corner of our wrapper, so we will set left to 0. Then, we want to raise the z-index to 100 to be sure our slide is on top of the previous one. And that's it. Let's save that and see what we just did in our browser. And there you have it. We have a nice header navigation, and when we click on our labels, we get a new slide image. Okay, that's pretty cool, but the name of the workshop is Full Screen Slider, and this is definitely not sliding. For that, we just have to apply some CSS transitions. Let's go back one more time to horizontal.css. To smooth our whole slider transition out, we are going to add a transition to our check slide. So, inside our check slide selector, we are going to transition our left property over 0.65 seconds with a little easing. In this case, we'll use ease out. And since we want our current slide to wait till the next one has come onto the screen, we will go to our slide class and add a transition for the left as well. This time we want it to happen immediately, so we will set the duration to 0, but we also want to delay it by 0.75 seconds. So these transition styles have the new slide coming in, and afterward our old slide slides back out. And while we're adding transitions, we are not limited to just the slide itself. We can also do some slide animations with these headlines that we have in each slide. I'm going to target our slide H1, and I'm going to give it an opacity of 0. Then I'll translate that down the y-axis by adding a transform of translate y 100%. Then I'll give it a transition for transform with a 0.5 second duration and a 0.5 second delay. We'll add a comma, and then we'll transition the opacity over 0.5 seconds. This transition will allow us to see the opacity go down to 0, but it will delay the transform till the next slide is already covering it. Now we will target our headline when our input is in its check state. We will change the opacity back to 1 and translate back to 0. For this, we'll transition both over 0.5 seconds and give them a 0.5 second delay. This will have our headline appearing and rising as the slide is coming onto the screen. So let's save this, and real quick, look how little code we have actually written. Not that much. So let's check that out in the browser. And there you go. Nice smooth transitions for our full screen slider. There you have it. We have just built a full screen slider without the need for a single line of JavaScript. As front-end developers, we have a lot of tools at our disposal. Exercises like these are a great way to push those tools to the limit and see just how much they can do. With just a small amount of CSS, we're able to create some nice animation effects, and due to the built-in behavior of radio inputs, the arrow keys provide a second means of navigation. This technique provides a great CSS alternative to a classic JS approach. So I hope you have enjoyed this workshop. I'm Dave Connor, and I'll see you next time. Thanks for watching.